G'day everyone and welcome back to the Side of Minutes podcast. My name is Max and I'm joined by Flynn as always. Today we've got a cool topic or two to go through. Namely, there was this new vulnerability that has recently been exploited in the wild and used quite prolifically by a couple of state actors, even APTs, such as Scattered Spider, if you're familiar with that. There's this new piece of malware which, it's essentially Bransomware is what its goal is, and what it does is it acts like a driver on your PC. So say you download something from a sketchy link and there's this driver packaged in with an executable. You run the executable, or the executable gets run on your computer, and what will happen is that this driver will not only put ransomware on your PC, but it's got something called an EDR wiper. Now, if you know what an EDR is, EDR stands for Endpoint Detection and Response. And what EDRs do is they check your devices on your network and see if they have malware on them. And if they do, they block them off to make sure they can't get any further than your whatever computer has the malware on it. So this driver, it not only is able to fly under the radar of the EDR, it disables it on that computer and can actually wipe the EDR from that PC. And I believe that if it spreads enough, it can actually wipe the EDR's logs completely of any activity. So it leaves you in the dark as a defender about what's actually going on that computer, and it could be anything. You're completely out of the picture.
Yeah, I mean, we can testify that if this happened to somebody and you're on that team, that would be an absolute nightmare.
Yep.
Logs and understanding what is happening to sort of create a picture of an attack that is happening is, the lifeblood of instant response. If you don't know what's happening, you're just kind of in the dark. You don't know what to do. And I suppose an example of an EDR that's, timely is CrowdStrike. So, for example, CrowdStrike, it would go under the radar of CrowdStrike and then completely wipe everything from it.
Yeah, so this is being kind of run as an extension of Portray, which is a malware that, its purpose was disabling an EDR and other security software from a computer. Now, it's been incorporated in what this is called is a ransomware kit. Now, the ransomware kit, we're not sure exactly what is in it, but a version of this Portray driver and some other nasty stuff. So it's, people have said it's evolved into a wiper, which, it not only disables the EDR, but wipes it out. So bit of a yikes from there. And the fact that this has actually been seen in the wild now means that, threat actors are actively using this, which is a bit worrying.
Yeah, so for people who don't know, a ransomware kit, or I think this is also, you could just call it a rootkit, is basically the worst type of malware, which for what it's doing makes absolute sense because, as we spoke about before in the CrowdStrike episode, it works at the kernel level, and a rootkit is something that works at the kernel level. So it basically changes the actual, your machine. If somebody gets a rootkit on your system, it's game over, basically.
Yeah, pretty much.
And suppose the uniqueness of this is that it's a rootkit that is also destroying other parts of root, which probably isn't a new thing for a rootkit. I suppose it's an interesting way how it's specifically targeting EDR.
Yeah, definitely. Now, moving on to a slightly lighter subject. Flynn and I thought it would be fun to go through some of the more interesting cyber attacks that we've seen over the years, and the ones that are a little bit humorous, a little bit funny. Now, obviously, we'll say here we don't condone any cyber attacks going on. Don't do this. It's not good. You're going to get arrested. You're going to get in trouble. So don't do it. But what we can do here is talk about ones that have already happened and, explain them through. So, Flynn, why don't we jump into this with one of them?
Yeah, as you said, cyber attacks tend to be very doom and gloomy. So one that I saw that I thought was particularly funny, I don't know how much of our audience is aware of Stuxnet. It's basically historically probably the most sophisticated malware and attack that has ever happened. It was basically the Israeli and American government targeting Iranian nuclear systems, and the malware was so specific that, yeah, it was so sophisticated. I recommend looking it up. But this attack was kind of I think it was a predecessor to the Stuxnet attack. What made this one funny, though, is so Stuxnet would target nuclear reactors and make them speed up, which basically destroy them. This one was just completely different. Of it would go into your systems and then randomly play AC/DC Thunderstruck. Which I don't know if it's more funny or less funny that this is on an Iranian system where obviously not everybody speaks English, so they probably don't know who AC.
And they've said that it would play and stop playing at random intervals. So you'd suddenly hear a guitar riff followed by silence and your system's not working, and then another guitar riff would play immediately after as you're trying to figure out what the hell's going on. So,
yeah, it would be a horror movie, but in the funniest way. I think it would be scarier, but if you have no idea what Thunderstruck is. Because I suppose for us would be like, why is Thunderstruck playing? But if you don't know what Thunderstruck is, you just hear, like, imagine how terrifying is you just walking through work and you just hear, It'd be terrible.
Yeah, it'd be awful. Yeah. Now another one that's a good laugh is so the Australian Defence Force has a sector called the ASD, the Australian Signals Directorate. Now the Australian Signals Directorate is in charge of kind of national defence in a cybersecurity kind of space. Now their first like claim to fame or action they did. And this one is like less like, really funny, but it's still, a little bit funny. What they did is they hacked into a foreign terrorist organization, and as a coordinated attack was happening on the organization, they were playing, if anyone's heard of Rickrolls, it's just Never Gonna Give You Up, that song. They would play that on the terrorists' phones as they're trying to desperately call their friends to help them out. So they try to log into their phones, they'd log in, and all they would be able to see and hear is Never Gonna Give You Up, just playing really loudly on their phones. Apparently, it was very successful and gave away the positions of many of these foreign terrorists. So, I mean, it's pretty useful, attack, but ultimately they could have done a lot more with it, I feel like.
Rickrolls are just, it'll never like fully die. I feel like every time it goes away, just a couple of years later, somebody's rickrolling someone online again. So I'd imagine a Rickroll hacking incident is down the line at some point.
Yeah, now they were also able to disable the internet access of all of their mobile phones. So not only were they getting rickrolled, but they weren't actually able to connect to the internet to figure out what was going on, how it was happening. And some of the more technically proficient, I guess, terrorists, they were able to figure it out and actually stop this attack using some, I don't know what they did, if they were able to hard reset the phone or something. And the next stage of this attack was to just flick the Wi-Fi router that they were connected to off and on again many times a minute, so that they would get halfway through something and then immediately get cut out and have to redo it all again. So
yeah, I suppose a valid way to of warfare is just messing with your enemy.
Yeah.
I suppose it's probably valid in a sense that, if you're doing something that's like, a bit lighthearted, like the Rickrolling or the Thunderstruck, it might have a mental effect of, oh, well, what can they do? Or they're not taking us seriously and blah, blah, blah. Which could be interesting, I suppose. I don't know if that's actually part of the strategy or if it's just they thought it was funny.
I'd say probably the second one. They're probably just thinking, what's the most disruptive thing we could do? Oh, I've got it. Let's just play Rickrolls on their phones.
Yeah.
And finishing it off, in Las Vegas, a fish tank for some reason had an API connecting to a service on the internet. Now, it was just essentially an access point that was, left open and connected to this casino's computer network, a fish tank. Now, someone was able to get access to this API and completely compromise the casino's internal network by going straight through the fish tank. So I don't know what this has been coined, but I suppose it's just the fish tank cyber attack. Yeah.
I mean, this isn't even like a new thing, I suppose. When we were going over the Western Sydney data breach, they got through a solar car lab. If things don't need to connect to the internet, just don't do it. It's really that simple. But I think it's just really funny, a fish tank of all things.
Yeah.
But this is with IoT especially. I mean, remember 5 years ago or something where videos were everywhere online of people just looking through webcams and talking to families and stuff like that.
Yeah, 100%. So from that 10 gigabytes was stolen from the casino, and they were able to trace the exfiltration to their very own fish tank.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy that a 10 gigabyte data breach could be kind of bad, but from all the data breaches we've been reading about recently, that seems like so minor.
Yeah.
I suppose it could be bad depending on what it is, but yeah.
Thanks for listening. Just a reminder that the Cyber Minutes podcast is for educational purposes only. The views expressed by hosts and guests are their own, not necessarily their employers. Advice discussed is general advice. We promote ethical discussions, not illegal activities. Have a cybersecurity question? Send an email to cyberminutespodcast@gmail.com, as we'd love to answer it. Stay cyber safe.